All right, welcome back to Web3 Whispers, where we talk to the gigabrains and the anons that power Web3. I'm Mathias, I'm the co-host Steeb.
Hey guys, Mathias, you sound really tired, man. That was I think you normally start off with
Long
the
day.
all right, and then this one's just like a all right. Like
This one's gonna start with like, fuck.
you're right,
Well,
dude.
welcome back.
second podcast of the day. Mathias a little tired, guys, but I'm
Bear
bringing a lot of
market.
energy. I'm on my second cup of coffee, first thing of pre-workout, and we're stoked to do this podcast with the anarchist himself, Pons, project founder for the Plague. Sitting in his lofty office, looks like a library, hasn't hung any of his pictures up. It's got an echo. But Pons, go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about how you started in the space and where you are now.
Yeah, hey, thanks again for having me. Sorry that there is an echo, if it's still there.
No, it's all good. We'll just use it as proof that you can make a lot of money in Web3.
That's a
Actually,
flex. Real office.
I made this money before Web3. Yeah.
Well, don't tell the listeners that.
I'm probably behind after the last couple of days anyways. I'm probably lost more money than I've made in Web3 at this point. But
yeah, maybe we don't talk about gains during a bloodbath. That's fair.
Yeah. So in crypto in 2017, and I got wrecked like everybody else. Well, like most people did in 2017, and then kind of went dormant. I held my positions and I went dormant until 2020. And, when everything started to come back alive, I got interested in it again. And unfortunately, I didn't cost average throughout that last dormant period. And it was another bear. I won't make that mistake again. But anyways, and then, so crypto, I've been in it for a while now. The NFT space, I got into at first with land. I bought land in the sandbox and I bought land in Decentraland because they seem like no-brainers, being metaverse plays for the long run. There's so many metaverses now. I don't know if they were no-brainers, but at the time they were. And then I just got more interested in NFTs after doing that and understanding the technology about it, or understanding the technology more. I minted a bunch of garbage that worthless today and started learning more about the space. Of course, I came across the apes, and in late October, early November, I bought a mutant and a regular Bored Ape. And I bought those because I believe that they were going to be a better play than Bitcoin, which is basically what I traded for. I traded my Bitcoin for an ape and a mutant. And I thought it was going to be a better play just because I could see the pop culture starting to accept those apes. I don't know who the first rapper was to adopt it, but it was somewhere around that time.
And now all the rappers have one.
Yeah, now all of them have them. It was before Snoop, but after, I think maybe Lil Baby or somebody. No, it was before him too. It doesn't matter. But so anyways, as I started a Twitter account after I got my apes, because I figured out you had to understand, or you had to be on Twitter to understand what was happening in the space. And yeah, social media account I've had. Actually, I despise social media, but I'm here now, and now I've got Twitter and Discord and all this other crap that I'm getting pinged with on a daily basis. And so, yeah, here I am.
Well, glad to have you, man, and thanks for telling us your story. I mean, it seems like you've had about as seasoned as a ride as most, and we're really excited to have you. I mean, shouts out to Nene on the Shogun War Discord for connecting us with the Pons. He's a huge proponent of any project he believes in, which I think is great, and that's how it should be. And but anyways, yeah, thanks for having us, man. And so, can you tell us a little bit about your project, the Plague, and what it's going for? And I think Nay had a question for you that I need to ask you, which is Plague a cult?
Is Plague a cult? I don't want a cult, so this Plague is not a cult. But of course, I don't know if any cult says that they're a cult either. So
yeah, I was going to say, would a cult leader tell us that it's a cult or not?
So yeah, no, I deny it's a cult. You can figure the rest out for yourself. But so the Plague, the purpose of the Plague, it's a little bit, well, it's a lot different than most of the other NFT projects in the space, in that our focus is primarily decentralizing opportunity. And that's a fancy way of saying well, first kicking the bad guys in the space butt and doing that several different ways. And we can talk about that a little bit more here in a minute. But more specifically, just like any other industry or any other new technology that comes about, there's a race to gain control over it. And we're already well behind. Even though it's a decentralized technology, very little is actually decentralized. As you saw with Luna, it was a decentralized stablecoin, but then they halted the chain. How can you do that if it's decentralized? So very little is actually decentralized. And so what happens is you get this concentration of power, and they screw you, just like you get concentrated power in all of the Web2 communications, and they can tell you what you can say. They can show you. They control what you see through algorithms, and with the blockchain specifically, that can become a nightmare, and will become a nightmare for all of us if everything we do is tracked through the blockchain, which ultimately is probably where things are headed. So with us at the Plague, we want to decentralize the opportunity the best we can. In the end, we might lose, but we're going to do our part. Trying to flip the narrative away from the influencers, specifically in the NFT space, that are they control everything. I mean, at this point, there's all the backroom deals that are happening, and the pumps, and so we want to be the influencer through numbers with the frogs, and that's one part of it. And I'm going to talk about one more part of it, and then I'll shut up and see what questions you have. But then we want to use our resources. So the frogs are a marketing resource, really, because they're crazy and they go all over Twitter, and we'll have other things that they can do. And then we want to use our dollars or ETH or whatever it's going to be to promote Web3 businesses, other projects that share our values, and try and create some things that are of value for Web3 and the blockchain, and not just the same copy pasta stuff that we're all seeing on a daily basis in the NFT space specifically.
And what are some businesses that you feel like promote the same values and have those same values? If you want to just speak a little bit on those, like just give us an example of one or two.
Yeah, well, some we don't know yet, because we have a process called the Frog Tank, which hasn't started yet. We're only a couple of weeks out of mint, and so we're kind of organizing who's going to do what in the background, because we didn't start with a big team and try and make that team rich. We wanted to hire frogs, and we had to know who the frogs were before we could start that process. So we started with a very small team of people who are going to execute. And so we're filtering through Frog and see who can do what. But we're going to have a process called the Frog Tank. And so these businesses will present to us. It's a knockoff of Shark Tank, obviously.
Yeah, got that.
It's not very clever, but it gets the point across. And so we don't know what businesses yet in some cases, but I'll give you an example of one thing that we're doing that should be done hopefully in a week, maybe 2 weeks max. Have you ever heard of the website Drudge Report?
I haven't. Matthias, have you?
Yeah.
Okay, it's an American news site, drudgereport.com, and it's basically a news aggregator, and it's very famous for different reasons. But so what we want to do is we've got what we call the WAGMI report. It's a direct knockoff. It's going to look just like the Drudge Report, and it's going to consolidate. It's going to consolidate the news in the NFT space, because today you only see what you can find on Twitter. And a lot of times that news is, it's going to be biased for one, and all news is biased, but it's biased. It's going to be curated by your algorithm, so you may not even see some things that are happening. And so we're going to concentrate, we're going to pull and news specifically out of Twitter and other sources, so that somebody, if like for instance, with the whole thing that was going on with Azuki, if you didn't know it was happening, you're going to see all this random crap on Twitter, and you're not going to know what is actually happening, right? You got one guy who created a fake post and acted like he was the whatever that guy's Agabon or whatever the guy's name is.
Yeah, I saw that actually. That ended up on my timeline, so I don't know what that says about me.
Yeah, well, exactly. So it ended up on mine too. And at first I saw it, I was like, oh, here he goes. He's taking the money and learning. But It ended up being a scam, and so, or a sham. But a lot of people believe the fake news. Same thing with Luna. There's a bunch of news out there, but you don't know whether it's true or not. So we're going to try and create a spot where people can go and see what's happening and try and get the truth. Now that's the short-term goal. For the long term, if we want to be a true Web3 business, then we've got to decentralize that. And so to truly decentralize it, it becomes a crowdsourced news site that has checks and balances by the crowd to see what's true and what's false. And so that might, and it might fail, but we'll find out one way or another.
No, I love that. And I think you raised like a couple pretty interesting points. One being this idea that, you know, fake news, quote unquote, can be a slippery slope, and it tends to be on Twitter, especially. I mean, the example you gave, like with this fake Zagabond post, it's like all it takes is one person, specifically like one influencer, to not check the details, or just to leverage it as a means for, you know, pumping whatever bags he wants to pump. He just leverages it, and he creates his own posts, you know, coming off of it. And it becomes tougher and tougher as you layer on all of these, you know, sham posts on top of each other. It becomes tougher and tougher to really see what the true story is unless you go to the source. And so I like the idea that you have of creating something that is, you know, raw news, like the news at its truth, not the news through the mouth of influencers, because I think that gives an opportunity for people to have, you know, easier access to doing their own research, which, you know, that remains to be seen whether or not we can be bullish on do your own research or not in the Web3 space. But I'd like, I have quixotic dreams and hopes, and I hope that down the line we start seeing a lot more people actually looking into the projects that they're going into and not just FOMOing in.
Well, there's going to be tools that we create well, but so I mean, the problem with the WAGMI report is going to be that you're basically trading one set of biases for another, and you're trusting that our biases are better than theirs, which, you know, I'm going to say they are, but that's me. I could be a complete scammer too, right, in the long run. So
but at least you're spreading out the bias across a community rather than through the lens of one person.
Right. That's the first part. The second part is when we try and move it to a decentralized model. So the problem, the issue with trying to say something is true or false is you have to, first of all, you have to know what is true. Exactly. And second of all, you know, you've got, depending on your worldview, what's true or false could be different. And so if you decentralize it properly, which again, we may or may not be able to do, if you decentralize it properly, you take one person's biases out of the equation and you substitute it for a aggregate bias of, you know, tens of thousands of people if it's successful. And hopefully if you do that, you get the truth out of it. But that's having one person or one set of people decide what's true is just as dangerous as getting bad information. So you just have to be careful with how we do it.
Yeah, definitely. But I mean, it seems like you're a thoughtful guy, and you think about the decisions you make as much as Nay will tout the anarchy and whatnot. But it feels like you're going to try to make the right choice, which I think is important, because I mean, it's much less dangerous, in my opinion, than just kind of doing something blindly and not thinking about the outcome or the impact. So I'm excited to see what that.
The anarchist label is funny because I'm not really an anarchist, but I am definitely an anti-elitist and anti-centralization person.
Yeah, I mean, I think anything gets dramatized in Web3, right?
Yeah.
Well, I think some of that too is something that a lot of people need to get to, like that trust, that distrust of the establishment, distrust of, like, you know, decentralized, touted as decentralized things that a lot of people that are in Bitcoin really understand or have that foundation, but people maybe in ETH or maybe in other cryptos, like they just kind of don't have that, or even in NFTs, like especially don't have those kind of principles, which is interesting.
No, we're all here for the money. I mean, I got here for the money, and then I liked the decentralization after. It wasn't the reverse. I didn't come here for the decentralization. I came here for the money and then liked the decentralization.
Definitely not me. I'm here on pure purposes only. You know, definitely not here for the money.
Yeah, I'd give my money to anyone if I could, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, but no, I think it's a good it's an interesting way to think about like groups though, these DAOs that you're talking about, like trying to decentralize things, because at some point, like I don't know if people have ever gone through this exercise of trying to organize like a group vacation, they kind of see it's really tricky to have a group agree on something. You know what I mean? Like it's like, oh, what do you want to
Yeah.
eat? Chinese? Oh no, Mexican. Oh well, there's you know, and it's so personalized of like there's pros and cons to literally everything. You know what I mean? Everything
Yeah.
has a pro and a con, right? So it makes it very interesting.
Really, you can't really truly decentralize anything. Um, well, you can, won't get, like you said, you won't get anywhere, or then it becomes a majority rules environment, which is not always a good thing either. So
Mhm.
it's a balance for sure. And DAOs, as I've the further I've gotten into this, the more I realize the DAOs are nonsense. Anyways, everybody that says they have a DAO is lying. They're lying because especially if they're operating in the United States, because you can't have a DAO in the U.S. You can have a voting DAO, but they don't own the assets.
Yeah.
It's a complete farce, and we've tried to figure out how to do it, and you can't. And the only way you can do it is if you KYC'd and 1099 everybody that was in the DAO, and then you're not. Then you're not a Web3 business with anons running around, right? And nobody wants to KYC or get 1099. So yeah, unless your DAO is sending you a 1099, if you live in the US, it's not a DAO.
Yeah, it's kind
Yeah.
of like risking one overarching motif in DeFi or Web3 at the hope of achieving another.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I mean, so how do you feel about anons and being pseudonymous, anonymous? You're anonymous or? Oh, okay, cool.
So I understand the docs dev push
Yeah.
because you've got a lot of scammers. The other side of that is I see a lot of these NFT projects pushing that they've got doxed devs or doxed founders, but they could be completely incompetent and stupid, and so what? They're doxed, and he's an
Or still
idiot.
be a scam. I think, even
Yeah,
Mathias has said like there's plenty of scammers that are doxed.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
for sure.
And so one of the things that I like about the NFT world and the Web3 concept is the fact that you can be an anon. And I personally, I enjoy it, and I think it adds to the fun of the space and the mystery of in their head, everybody has a picture of what I look like, and they're all wrong, and so that just makes it fun.
You mean
I
you're
think
not
it is
you're
kind of
not a
fun.
7'6" bald guy with
Right.
with the horn rimmed glasses and
Exactly. There's not been a person yet that I've pictured in my head what they look like, and that they've actually turned out that way. So
yeah, it's the same thing with voices too, which I find is always funny. Like you always kind of picture what someone's voice will sound like when you're talking to them
yeah,
on DeFi. Like I always picture
yeah.
Nay as having like a really high pitched, shrill voice, but I'm sure he's gonna come on and just be like, "Hello, guys," like just very deep voice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm convinced that when I did my first AMA, people thought we're going to think that I sounded like Morgan Freeman or something like that, and so they were all pretty disappointed.
I love that.
It's pretty funny though. But I mean, it is interesting to see some of the just bring it back to like some of the regulations and like how many I don't know how many crypto attorneys there really are in the country, especially
Yeah,
US. Like you're talking about DAOs and stuff like that. Like I don't know that like I mean I know people are hiring counsel, but it doesn't seem like very many attorneys are really that versed in it. I mean, how
Mhm.
versed can you
It
really
seems
be
like
in
they
it,
kind of
right?
have to become versed, right? Like they sign on and
Right.
then it's like a learning process for them.
Kind of a
yeah. Well,
niche.
I'm not an attorney, and I don't have any
Mm.
background being an attorney, but I don't. Just from what I've learned from how you would have to form a DAO to properly do it. I don't think there's going to be very many DAO attorneys because I don't think there's going to be very many DAOs.
Mhm.
So the only way you can really set it up and how we plan on setting it up is you have a corporation that owns the assets, and you can set up the corporate structure so that it's directed by a vote, and that vote would be the DAO. So the DAO is a voting entity and not an ownership entity. But that's not what's being sold by all these places that say, you know, we're a DAO, you own the assets. The person that has the wallet owns the assets legally, and you can't really, like, these people that are rugging. You know, I know that there's some folks that are going to try and sue them and stuff like that, but if they provide a JPEG, at the end of the day, they could say, "Wow, we failed. You know, we're a failed business, and what are you going to do?" You know, there's no contract. I mean, it is the wild, wild west. It won't stay that way forever. Especially with all this, you know, the Luna thing happening, the regulators are sniffing around, all this stuff is gonna be a lot more controlled, unfortunately, but it's the wild, wild west right now.
Yeah, so do you see it as like there's always going to be some part of, like, you know, of crypto that's like a dark jungle, and then some will get sanitized and colonized, and, you know, like, you know, Coinbase obviously, or Robinhood, you know, you can get crypto, but it's like you're not really custodying it. Coinbase, of course, well, yeah, Coinbase you're not either, but but you think some part of it's always going to maintain like an unregulated kind of Wild West feel? I'm hopeful it does, because I think that's kind of fun.
So I think only because government is incompetent too, and they really understand what they're doing. So I hope so, but but because they're incompetent, I could also see them passing something that has unintended consequences that just kills us. But I'm hopeful too that at least some of it is maintained. But I have no hope, even before the Luna deal, that they weren't going to nix the stablecoin thing, and then I believe that's trouble, because if you have to use a digital dollar and everything you do on that digital dollar is tracked, then, you know, you're toast.
Yeah.
So are you more apt to believe the theory that Luna was killed, economic hitmen or took him out, or what's your conspiracy theories now? We're talking.
Whether those hitmen were sent by the government, I don't know, or whether they just found a way to make a lot of money from shorting, you know, that could be it too. So, but yeah, it looks like, and I'm not you know, when it comes to people that are, you know, investigating what's happening on the blockchain, that's not really my expertise. But just from what I've seen, if it's true, what I've seen, it seems like it was definitely a coordinated attack, but whether that was like for profit or for the government, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I could see it being either one, honestly. Like, I was telling people, like, you know, anybody on crypto Twitter would short Luna. Like, if they could do it, they would crash any of them to make enough money. Like, they would do it for less money than those guys made killing Luna.
For sure,
you know,
for sure.
if they could do it.
That's why, I mean, one of the first things I said when I got on Twitter, and I had no followers and nobody saw it anyways, was, you know, WAGMI is baloney. It is not a thing. You know what I mean? It's
we can't all make it.
No, this is especially in crypto itself, it's a zero-sum game. There's only so much money, and until the new schmucks jump in, and then there's still only a certain amount of money, and so there's gonna be winners and losers in this game, and there's no doubt about it.
Hopefully the winners are the ones that are more informed and make educated decisions, and the ones that just kind of luck out.
Yeah, well,
that's my view on it, at least. I mean, I would like to think that you should put the more work you put into something, especially like in the space, the more it pays off. But it's obviously not how it works.
You definitely have a better chance of winning if you under those circumstances. But ultimately, the ones that are going to make the most are the ones that have the points, which is again why the Plague is trying to decentralize that as much as possible.
And the capital to deploy.
I mean, I definitely think that, like, everybody can do really well. Like, we can grow the pie, and, you know, like, we can onboard new people, or, you know, definitely stuff like that. But I feel like it's hard to underestimate how self-sabotaging people are. You know what I mean? Like, I'm giving the benefit of the doubt, like, not that they're dumb, but like the things that people will do that you're like, why would you do that? Like, you just like, you're like, there's no limit to that, you know?
I also feel like part of the onboarding process into the space is failing. Like, you know, I think every single project founder we've talked to, and every single contributor, anyone that we've talked to so far, has started off their story by saying how much money they lost.
Yeah, for sure. But the other part of it, the most important part, in my opinion, is we have to onboard them onto something that is something. I mean, what is actually being produced here? It's unsustainable. It's always been unsustainable to have a bunch of money flowing in and not have a product. Tanked because of the whole, founder had 3 failed projects things, right? But what was Azuki providing tangibly before that?
Culture.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, the thing is, like, it was nothing besides their bomber jacket. It was,
and I'm
the
not
bomber jacket
hating
from the
on
biplane.
I'm not hating on Azuki. You can say the same thing for the frogs right now. We haven't delivered anything yet. But if you look at the projects that are out there, Doodles, what have they actually produced other than?
Yeah, no, that's the thing. And I think a lot of people would argue, oh, sorry, I couldn't tell if that was my echo or you. No, I was just going to say, I mean, I think the one thing that a lot of people would argue is it's the community, but like when anyone has access to a Discord, like really, is it the community? Like you do have like I have this thing that you don't have, but like, that's not enough, right? Like that's the point you're getting at, is like, there's nothing palpable there. There's nothing that, there's no real benefit to having one, to having X NFT over like another person other than like the clout. And so like, that's kind of what you're getting at, right? Like there's nothing palpable.
There's no the community is there. I mean, I don't know what you get. I have an ape now just because I'm going to flip it. I'm a mutant, and I had, like I said, I had the apes before, and they provide you clout on Twitter, right? Because people think you're an expert because you have an ape. And now the apes are actually producing something. But like in the case of the doodles, you're getting community, but I mean, what does that mean? Like if I wanted to buy a doodle before everything dropped and a doodle was 20 ETH and I was paying $60,000, what am I getting for that?
Yeah,
it's basically, you're basically getting a Twitter Rolex is what you're getting. And there's only so many Twitter Rolexes that people are going to buy. So that's what I'm saying. And it's not just NFTs. Same thing with crypto. All these coins, I mean, there's very few of them that actually have a product. And until something is being produced, it's all fake money.
Well, it's definitely interesting because I think it begs the question of like, what is value more so than anything? Because you could very well make the same. I mean, and I think is actually pretty accurate for traditional art. You know what I mean? Like, what is a Mona Lisa? But basically provenance canvas, old canvas and paint, right? It's just.
And I've made that argument, and I agree with it. But the Mona Lisa is a 1 of 1. It's not a 1 of 10,000.
Yeah. So I mean, maybe 1 of 1 art or something like that, or
maybe
I could buy that.
Maybe the Mona Lisa wouldn't be worth nearly as much as it is if there was 9,999 other Mona Lisas with different traits.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think the idea too is that everything kind of leads back to this, like everything's a Ponzi. Like if everything's a Ponzi and nothing's a Ponzi, then it's kind of like, which one do you really want to play? Like things are only worth something because other people will pay for them, right? Like there's other demand other than like, other than like maybe food and if you're hungry, or shelter, if you're, like we go back to the pyramid here, but like, other than that, you're kind of picking which Ponzi is best designed and you have the best odds and you're trying to so I think that's why I tell people to get out of the stock market. I don't really tell them as financial advice, but I say like, you have a better shot not getting eaten alive by sharks in crypto. It's still rigged to some degree, but it's less rigged than the stock market.
And let me really quickly throw in a question there, inject a question to you, Pons, because you do have a project. And so I guess flipping your statement on its head and asking you the question, like, what is the product that Plague is offering? Is it the WAGMI news aggregator? Or what do you have in mind?
So currently, like today, if you look at what our product is, it's nothing, right? And so you could say our product is scam busting. That's not really a product, that's a service, and it's going to be a free service essentially. And it's not really built out 100% yet. It's almost there, but the process isn't built out 100%. So what is the product today? Is nothing. What is the product going to be? It's going to be the best way I can describe it so people can understand it, and it's not a perfect analogy, is just think about a VC for Web3, but without the blood suckingness around it. You know what I mean? So if you've got a good Web3 idea and you bring it to us, and so you've got the idea and you've got the skills to do part of that idea, but you don't have all the resources, whether that's talent or whether that's money, we can help with the rest of, we can help fill the gaps of the resources and help build that company. And so our product is threefold, well, really mainly twofold. It's the cleaning up the NFT space, which again, is not a product that we're going to be selling. You can call it a community service. And then the Web3 focused businesses are going to be the products. Again, we don't know what all those are yet because we haven't started the frog tank process, but the WAGMI report is one. There's two other big ones that we're talking about in the background that I won't talk about here, but they're Web3 focus. And when people say Web3, it's a buzz term. What I mean when I'm saying Web3, it's taking a current Web2 product and converting it to Web3, which in some cases will make it better, and in some cases doesn't need to be done. So, and you don't know whether it needs to be done or whether it's going to work how you think it's going to work until you start doing it. So today there's no product. And that's the case with a lot of NFT projects, but unfortunately, most of them are promising games. And there's only so many games that are going to be adopted and played, and especially over a period of time that is going to be worth being part of that project. If that's why you're there. If you're there for, we'll call it utility, the game's got to be developed. That's the first hurdle. The game's got to be good. That's the second hurdle. And the game's got to be adopted. That's the third hurdle. That's a lot of big hurdles to overcome in a space where hundreds of projects are being launched on a monthly basis, and 80% of them are promising a game. Now play to earn game, but what does that even mean?
Yeah. And I guess on that note, how does your community, the Plague community, how do they benefit from this like non-blood sucking VC service? I mean, obviously, aside from being able to execute on their own volition, I'm assuming that there's going to be a community-based decision-making model, but yeah.
Well, yes. So that I can't tell you because I've got a Medium article that I'm hopefully going to have out tomorrow that explains it.
Exciting.
But they will, how they benefit from the utility of that. Again, everybody has things, otherwise you get in trouble. I could get in trouble. How they benefit from the utility of that is going to be out in that Medium article.
Well, I look forward to reading it.
Yeah. So do you write all the Medium articles, or I really like how they're written? So, okay, nice.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Awesome.
There we go.
So I'm going to operate on the assumption that everything Pons says he's not, he actually is. So Pons is actually an attorney, and he is an anarchist. No, I like it, man. Thank you.
Well, so that is something that's kind of interesting. Like we were talking about, like people. Do you think that more people are gonna be getting in trouble, actually in trouble, or do you think people are just gonna forget?
I don't think so, unless they pass retroactive regulation, which who knows what they would do. But I mean, I think there's some people that could get in trouble, but I don't think there's I don't think there's gonna be much people thrown behind bars or anything like that. As long as you're doing things above board and you're not telling somebody, if you buy this doodle derivative, you're gonna make $1,000, a month or something like that. That's a straight security. You can't say stuff like that. But I don't think so. I hope not, because there's a lot of people that just don't understand the way the world works, and they're just copying what they see around them, and there's people doing stupid things for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of reminds me of another point that you made earlier that I was going to bring up, but just forgot in the moment, was about how, if regulations are injected into the space, it's going to be through like one of two lenses, right? It's going to be through either the lens that the government is, incompetent and they just can't regulate it, or that the government is, so incompetent that they're going to try to regulate it, and it's going to have unknowing negative impact on the space, right? That acts as a detriment. And I truthfully, like, I want to believe that it's one, but I think it might be, you know, the latter, which is that they're gonna, because we're already starting to kind of see it. Like, I don't know, Matthias, if you remember in the first podcast we did, we talked about I forget the regulation. It's like SEC. Shoot, do you remember?
Oh yeah, and I mean, I remember we
It
were
was, they were
looking
trying to
over it,
regulate
but
essentially AMMs, and
Mhm.
you know, I think God, who was it that wrote the letter back to them? Was it Dopex?
It was Delphi.
Delphi. It was
Some of
Delphi
the
Digital.
hedge
Yeah, yeah,
funds,
yeah.
yeah.
Delphi wrote that article back to them, basically saying that, like, you know, that all of the wording in their like regulation, or all the wording in their God, I'm blanking on the fucking word. All of the wording in this regulation that they're trying to pass was essentially just like missing the point, and it was, you know, not operating under the mission statement of the SEC's, you know, actual regulatory goals. And I think like that is obviously a microcosm of what I think could happen, which is that the government tries to step in, but isn't educated enough, isn't competent enough to really regulate the space in a way that's beneficial to everyone. Instead, it acts as a detriment, kind of unknowingly or you know, involuntarily acts as a detriment to the space. And it's kind of
Yeah.
a, it's kind of a sad thing to think of, but unfortunately I feel like that's kind of the direction it's headed.
I mean, I
Yeah,
think the government's
there's always,
always been
oh, go
like
ahead, I'm
that, right?
sorry.
Oh no, I mean, I think we both had the same thing, but I was going to say, like, I think the government's always been a bull in a china shop. Like, it's just how
100%.
they
Yeah.
are, you know.
Yeah.
Well,
Sorry, go
there's
ahead.
always unintended consequences to any of these decisions. And then when you make them, from a room in Washington, D.C., amongst people who have no idea of what's actually happening, it just becomes even worse, because then they call, you know, their way around that is calling the experts. And, you know, who defines what an expert is,
Yeah.
who chooses the expert, what's the expert's agenda. There's a lot of problems all the way down the path that make it a problem. Not just in the, it's everything that we deal with on a daily basis in our lives that's regulated in one way or another. It all happens like that, and it's not going to be any different in crypto. It's just hope they don't screw it up too bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they were actually even talking about making validators, stakers, like all of those were going to be like had to be KYC'd and like get
Yeah.
1099'd, and yeah, it was
Yeah,
ridiculous. Like,
they were, I can't remember which one it was. I think it was at the end of 2020. If they had passed it, it basically would have killed any DeFi activity at all, which maybe was their
yeah, I
goal.
mean, could be. I wonder. I mean, do you think that they will let DeFi live? Like any real decentralized DeFi, do you think they'll actually let it flourish?
No, no.
I know, pretty much right. Like it's kind of fatalistic or whatever, but it's like if
Kudos to
it
you
went
to
its
having
way,
a fatalistic outlook and still trying to build something in the space.
still
Yeah,
coming in
well,
swinging.
you know, you can throw your hands up and give up. You can try and make something happen, and
Yeah.
and
It's hands up or head down, right?
yeah, exactly.
Well, I think it's funny that like if you think about it, like if it works, then it's illegal, and if it doesn't work, then it's a Ponzi. So then it's like, okay, well, what, you know, like great, I got good options. But Bank of
Yeah.
America only gives you 0.000025% on your savings, so you know, good luck.
Yeah, and that's why I don't think DeFi is going to work, is because you know, I don't have to say it. Everybody knows where the concentration of power is, and
Yeah.
it's a direct affront to banks, and it's got problems. It's got its own problems, so they've got plenty of excuses to regulate it and end it. But it could work if it was done correctly. And I'm not an expert on it. I just the concept of it could work if it's done correctly.
Right.
But the likelihood that the folks that have the money in their hands today are going to let it out to some degens who are creating a decentralized system is not very high.
Yeah, it's like the likelihood of them trying to fix the problem rather than them letting the problem be the excuse to regulate it is pretty slim.
Exactly.
Well, then, so then I think that begs the question too. Like, if all of it doesn't work, or like, I mean, do you think Bitcoin also as well falls into that category, or is that kind of just like ETH DeFi? I mean, I know there's Bitcoin DeFi, some bits are here or it's starting, but what do you think about that? Like, do you think Bitcoin? I mean, it's not like, yeah. What do you think?
I can see them allowing the transfer of money using Bitcoin and those kind of things, but I don't know. I don't see them allowing any DeFi in the traditional sense happen unless it's centralized in some form or fashion.
It's more like it's not asking for permission. It's like I think there's some like quote or something like just instead of thinking if you can or say like who's gonna stop me or whatever, like just going for it anyways. Like basically just try and see who stops you. Like you're gonna see if they can
You're talking about
stomp out
it's
everything.
easier to ask for forgiveness and permission.
Yeah, kind of. I think there's another one that's kind of similar, but I think it's basically if you just look at it as like it's a PvP environment, and you know, like the government's not going to help you, so you kind of have to just do the best you can, and you know, there you go. Like
you didn't start that quote with, or I guess you didn't preface it with the old Chinese proverb like you normally do. It made it sound a lot more.
I should have. It's an old Chinese proverb I read in a McDonald's one time. No, but I think it's interesting because I mean, what can you do other than just try and make something doable? And I'm hopeful that the innovation here. I mean, because there's a lot of smart people in DeFi and the space, so I'm hoping somebody will kind of. There's another Satoshi out there that will crack the mold or crack the problem.
People always find a way around things. So whatever regulation they have, I'm confident that there'll be some way to work around it in some form or fashion. And, it'll be whack-a-mole. They'll shut that down and people will work around it. But, and I don't, it's not really worth to me sitting around and not doing anything because I'm going to try and predict what the outcome is going to be because I'll be wrong anyways. So I might as well just do what we're doing and then we'll see what happens afterwards. We're not really getting into DeFi ourselves. I mean, we're going to have a token, so technically you could call it DeFi, and if we do staking and those kind of things, but
sounds like a security to me,
but ultimately, I think the way that we're going to work it out is going to be is going to make us safe. But who knows? I could be wrong, and then But if I'm wrong, then it's not going to be like we're the only ones wrong. It'll be the way we set it up. If they shut it down. The whole thing will get shut down, not just the frauds.
Yeah, I mean, I think my thing is like, if we all get locked up, is there some way we can all get locked up together? So it's like the fun area of the jail, you know what I mean? Like, at least it'll be fun. But like, damn, you remember that 10,000 APY? Shit was wild.
All get locked up together. I love that.
Yeah, well, start brainstorming stuff.
Yeah, just throw us in Rikers.
Yeah, but no, I think that's totally true. I mean, I think that people get into the idea like, oh shit, the government, is omnipotent and like, if they want to kill something, they can. But like, there's maximum security prisons where people are drug addicts. Like, you can get like, there's always a way through. There's always, nature will find a way. Like, degens will find a way.
Yeah,
that's what we hope.
I'm hopeful. That's
well,
the
maybe we can.
case.
I don't know, Mathias, if you have any other like questions related to DeFi or the project or whatnot, but maybe we can hop over to some of our fun questions.
Yeah, I mean, we can just jump into the fun ones. The one I thought of, which was when Pons was talking about before. So, what gave you the conviction to come back to crypto a second time after the last crash, especially with the way that you viewed crypto? It's like, what gave you the conviction?
Actually, the second time, I was coaching a football team, and I was talking to one of the assistant coaches, and he was a big, I was calling him a moon boy. I mean, he was into crypto. He'd been in since before 2017. And so he's talking about it, and I was like, yeah, I was in it. I got wrecked. I said, I still got this and this, but I don't really pay much attention to it. And I said, I don't really understand it. It was all magic money and I lost. And he said, so he actually at that point explained the technology behind it to me. And it kind of put a light bulb off in my head. And I was like, holy crap. I said, I never thought of it the way he explained it. And so the next day, and the timing was great because it was, I want to say it was August, either July or August before everything started pumping again in 2020. I got out of the stocks, which I had jumped into after the crash in March, and rolled it into crypto, and it just worked out because everything started pumping after that. So it was luck. As far as coming back in full force, it was luck.
There we go. You guys heard it here. Just get lucky. That's it.
Yeah, that's part of life,
Definitely
man.
helps.
I mean, a lot of it is hard work, and you know, the harder you work, the luckier you get. But some of it's just dumb luck.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
mean, I
true
totally,
enough.
I think that's super true. Like, but the other one I wanted to throw in there was, what do you think about M&A in crypto and in NFTs? Do you think like that'll start growing? Will we hit like a roaring 80s of M&A in DeFi, crypto, NFTs?
M&A.
Mergers
Yeah.
and acquisitions in
Oh,
crypto.
mergers and acquisitions. Okay, I
Yeah,
never heard
sorry.
anybody. I never heard anybody use that term in crypto. That's why you
Yeah,
threw me
it's
off.
very TradFi.
Pretty
Yeah,
niche.
exactly. Yeah. Well, so yeah, I think any new space goes through phases, and of course in crypto it's going to go faster. But the first phase are the outside of crypto and in the world you're probably from, it's the small family businesses that start up. Then a big VC gets into the business and just starts gobbling up and consolidating, right? Over time. And that's just going to fast forward here. So yeah, I think there will be consolidation because again, ultimately, very few people are here for the decentralization. They're here for the money, and there's one way to make more money, and that's to acquire more things that can get you a return. So yeah, for sure, I think there'll be more of that.
Yeah. I think it's interesting that we see this, that like a lot of the same stuff that plays out historically in the stock market just plays out in crypto in turbo mode, like the, super fast forward 20x. Like it's just, we're rushing through the same stuff.
Yeah, it happens in every, it's not even the stock market, it happens in every industry, right? It's if you look at all different industries throughout time, it always starts again, just these small organizations. One becomes a big one and wants to grow, and the fastest way to grow is just to acquire the rest instead of building it out. And so that's natural. It's just everything's happening at warp speed here.
We trend
So
towards monopolies, basically.
You've
Right?
talked a lot about like your influences from a belief standpoint, like your own perspectives, your beliefs, like, and how they translate into the space. But you want to talk a little bit about some of your influences, maybe from other projects or other people, et cetera, for building this project?
Projects, there's not really a lot of, I wouldn't say there's a lot of influence from other projects. Some projects that I have respect for, and that you can see some tinges of it in our project. So I've said it multiple times, the Bored Apes, Yuga gets credit for creating the apes and for creating, I guess the term is good vibes around the apes, but I give the ape holders, for the most part, the credit of building that brand. So that's one thing that I stress to the frogs a lot is the project is going to be successful if they can build the brand on Twitter specifically, because that's where the Bored Apes built their brand. And so they're doing a great job of that. And so you can see some of that drifting into us. The Seals / Pixelverse world, those guys, I think they building a strong community that they have fun together on Twitter. I mean, there's you got bad apples in every community for the most part. They're all having fun together. They're they all, if one of them starts chirping on somebody, then they all start come chirping, and so they do a good job of that as well. And so I think you see some of that in our community also. And actually, I like the way House has done what they've done. I don't know if you know House Pass and those guys. I like the way that they've done as far as being mysterious and bringing value to the holders of the original House Pass. Llama does the same thing. So I guess, yeah, I think I answered the question there.
Yeah, and it's I got to say, man, like I think I have a positive outlook for whether or not your community will be able to sort of build up that same let's call it like effort towards your vision, and hopefully the community shares that vision. It seems like they do. Like I think the second you retweet, I had posted the schedule of our podcast for the week, And I remember when you retweeted that schedule, or maybe even just liked it, I can't remember. I think I had like, I don't know, somewhere between like 10 and like 30 frogs follow me on Twitter right after. And so I got to say, I mean, you know, it's kind of corny that we're talking about followers and whatnot on the pod, but I do think it kind of speaks highly to your community kind of being behind that vision.
They really are, and they're having fun, and that's the important part. We're going to reward them too with our FRG token, but they're all having fun, and to me, that's what's going to continue the momentum. Is we bring on new frogs, and they like what we're doing, and it's fun to go out there and when these people do their engagement farming, we know it's engagement farming. But like I tell the frogs, they're winning in the term, we're winning in the long run because we're breaking into their algorithm. And that's the key for our strategy. And I need to stop saying it because other people are going to figure it out. But that's the key to our strategy is breaking into other people breaking into their timelines by breaking through the algorithm. So we'll play all the engagement farming that people want, and they think they're winning, but we're winning.
I like that. I like that a lot. And, you know, you spoke a lot about how, you know, the project is kind of the antithesis to the crypto influencer. And on that same note, I'd like to ask, like, is there anyone that you would consider on Twitter as a crypto influencer that you do respect, that you do think is giving raw information?
Crypto or NFTs or both?
Sorry, I'll say like the Web3 space, DeFi, NFTs, crypto.
I've been, I always forget his last name because I know somebody with a similar last name, Benjamin, the Into the Cryptoverse guy. I think he is probably the most upfront and honest as far as the macro market itself. And I mean, to the point to where he had this theory. Do you know who I'm talking about?
I don't. Mathias, do you?
I think so. Yeah, I think I've watched a few.
Can you remember? Yeah. Can you remember his?
Yeah. Let me pull that up real quick.
Benjamin.
I'll pull it up.
Well, yeah, it's interesting. Like, I mean, there's so many different ways to kind of do an NFT product, and the NFT space is just such like a open. I mean, I do like about crypto and NFTs that I mean, especially NFTs. There's like no real barrier to entry. Like you can just get in however you want. It's kind of very like a meritocracy kind of. You know, there's definitely stuff, but that's definitely one upside. There's not a lot of
meritocracy. It should be a meritocracy. Right. It's not. In some instances, some people break through it, but a lot of it is. And I'm in these chats, right? I'm in some of these chats where these guys are all coordinating what they're doing, and it's so there's a lot of that happens. And I'm not in the good ones, believe me. I'm in the ones that probably are getting all the secondhand information. And then there's the chats that they're making things happen, and you can tell who those people are if you just watch. And that's one thing that we're going to start doing. Is that won't be right away. One thing we're going to start doing is we're going to have a list of influencers, and we're going to start tracking. We're going to start tracking their calls, right? And you can start seeing when they pop up. And I know just from watching it, the ones that are working them together in the background, because they'll just start going, right? One will post something about it, then the other one will post something about it, and they'll try and be sly about it, but it's obvious what's happening. And so we're going to start tracking that. But anyways, I digress. The guy's name is Benjamin Cohen.
Oh yeah.
Into the Cryptoverse. He's got like 650,000 followers, so he's pretty well known. And so I like him because he uses data and he reports the data. And he had a theory that we were going to be in a lengthening cycle. And as soon as this most recent dump, he said, well, my theory was wrong. And so that's how you know you're dealing with somebody that is straight up, because he could have made an excuse and blamed it on manipulation and this and that. But he just said, hey, my theory was wrong, so we're going to move on. So I like
I am excited to see all of the Splinter Cell frogs in these influencer discords. It's gonna be fun to see what happens.
Double agents,
little double agents. Change your Discord name, change your PFP, enter X Discord, and leak all the information. I like that.
Yeah, I mean, I love this. I love this too because I've always thought about that, like going backwards to like the last crash or something like that, and looking through people's Twitter accounts, like a lot of the big
Hmm.
ones and stuff like that, and seeing like what were people saying as it was lining up to like right before the crash, like were people who saw it coming, who didn't, who got lucky, like a lot of that stuff. But that's like a lot of data work.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
And it'd be interesting for somebody to do that for sure.
Wink, wink. Pons is already doing it.
Yeah, hell yeah. That's why I'm holding my frogs. I'm like, I'm minted and diamond handed these bad boys. So,
I
but
love that, man.
yeah, no, I mean, I think it's really good to see who will kind of with new information make a different decision or go against data or positions that they held quite strongly before. I don't know. I think Cowan is in that camp, but I don't know about. Not a big fan of Plan B. I think he has not gone that way. I think he's been
No,
doubling down.
his model failed, and so he should just say my model failed.
Yeah.
Like Coin Bureau, I like him.
Oh yeah, he's really good. Yeah, guy. Yeah,
Yeah.
I really like him too. He's very level. Like even on bullish ones, he'll go like, and now here's the downsides. Like
Yeah. Yeah. In the NFT space, there's not really a big influencer that I trust in the NFT space as far as that are actually out there trying to tell you what to buy. There's not many of those that I trust. There's some that I like a lot. I like Thread Guy. He cracks me up. And he's very genuine. And we've known each other since both of us were sub 10,000 followers. And I had more followers than him. And then he left
Blew
me in the
up.
dust, which
Yeah.
he should, because he's much better on Twitter than I am. So I like him a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder on that note if it's harder to if is it that there's less credible or like less like people that aren't influenced by their biases on NFT Twitter and compared to DeFi Twitter, or is it just that it's so much more subjective? Like on crypto Twitter or a DeFi Twitter, like if a project is like a straight up rug, you're like, okay, this is just a rug. But like on NFTs, it's like, oh, okay, we're just in it for the art, or like suddenly something
Yeah.
bad comes out. You know what I mean? Like, is it harder?
I think the difference is when you're in DeFi, you're pretending that you're actually doing something that's smart. When you're in NFTs, it is just pure. I mean, it's all nonsense. I mean, just listen to your conversation that you're having with somebody about what you're doing, and you just sound like an idiot. So it's in my opinion, the NFT space is just it is literally filled with degens and gamers and crazy people that they may say they like the art, and they probably do, but they only like the art because it's going to be more and they can make money on it. I've never liked the art on anything so much that I wouldn't sell it and make a profit. So, and I don't think that exists in the space in the 10,000 PFP world, anyways. Maybe in the 101s, but not in the 10,000 PFP world.
What do you think about that?
I really think it's just a difference of. I think it's a difference of the people that are trading DeFi and coins. They think they're actually investing in something, or at least they're pretending that they're actually investing in something. Here, it's just bedlam in the NFT space.
I like it. I mean, do you think that's different than the TradFi art world, or is that basically the same? But there's experts that have gone to college and can get. I mean, those guys get tricked too. So.
I don't know anything about the art world outside of NFTs. I don't know anything about the art world inside NFTs, so I couldn't tell you. I'm not here for the art.
It's all a Ponzi.
I mean, I will say that I think like with the acquisition of art, right? Like literal art, I feel like, there are a lot more people that look at art through their own lens rather than through the lens of, a group of people in the same space. You know what I mean? Like, I think a lot of people look at something and they say like, wow, I really like that, I'm going to buy it, Whereas like, I think in the NFT space, when we look at projects, we try to like, empathy is not the right word necessarily because it has a positive connotation, but we try to look at the NFTs through the lens of everyone else that's in the space. Like, will this take off? And obviously, like the thesis there is monetary. It's not subjective in the sense of like how it makes you feel and how much you actually like it, right? Like you're just trying to say like, will this take off? Like, do they have a decent team? Is the art pretty cool, like cool enough that other people will be into it? And then it's like, what's the community like, et cetera, et cetera. But it's not really like, wow.
Sorry to interrupt. The only ones that I liked that I was like, oh man, these look cool. are the frogs, obviously. The Azukis, I really like. I mean, those things look cool. When I had my Azuki, I thought it looked cool.
No, I
And
agree.
then I don't know if you know the ghosts. It's like
Project
GXHS.
PXN.
Yeah, I think those look cool, but they're a little too demonic for me. But other than that, there's nothing I've seen that I'd be like, man, that's super cool.
Yeah, I mean, I think the JPEGs look a little bit nicer at like 10 ETH versus and 20 ETH versus like, 0.002, and it starts, it looks good the better it gets up, but
yeah, you almost wonder what you would actually buy if like if you were just blinded to like community, blinded to like the floor price, etc. Like what you would actually be willing to put money into.
I mean, I've definitely bought PFPs
some of the apes look cool, but nobody would buy an ape with a piece of pizza hanging out of its mouth if it wasn't 100 ETH. I mean, if they couldn't get 100 ETH on it, I mean, or 10 ETH, or if there wasn't a profit from it, nobody's going to have a PFP with a piece of pizza hanging out of its mouth.
Yeah.
I wonder if they would even have the conviction to buy it if they had to do it with cash. Like there is something about like it's ETH and it's like really not in your account. And I mean, we hear about it all the time where they're like, fuck, I just spent, 0.2 ETH at the grocery store and it was insane, or whatever, half an ETH at the grocery store. And I just bought something for like 3 ETH, no problem. Like, it kind of does skew the way money is looked at.
Yeah, no doubt.
And I was gonna say I have bought PFPs that were like or art for like PFPs where you're like, great, this looks good, and like I like it. I feel weird a little bit, like I wouldn't make my PFP anything that I don't own, that anybody really like will can stop you or checks you. But I think that's maybe just me.
No, I wouldn't either.
Yeah, and anybody who like right click saves it and uses it as well, it feels more of like they're like a groupie or something, not really like, oh, I'm stealing your stuff. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't feel like, every person with an ACDC shirt on isn't, in the band. Like,
yeah, exactly.
It's like, but cool. Well, I think we're almost we just hit an hour, I think in a minute. So probably a good time. We can, final thoughts, questions.
Thanks for joining us, Pons. Like I do think that you have some really intuitive thoughts, and I do really like the Plague project. I like what you guys are doing. I like what it seems like you have in the pipeline and what the idea behind it is and the driving force. And it was great talking to you, man. I had a lot of fun.
Likewise, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. And sure. We'll probably get this pod up either tonight or in the morning, so I'll let you know.
Okay, yeah. So let me know when.
Yeah, and then if we want to do a Twitter space sometime, I think it would be fun. Get the community in here, especially with the everything's a Ponzi takes here. I mean, I think it would be fun to see what people, because some people, I mean, I think it's interesting, and I think people need to be exposed to it a little bit more. Like, need to know when you're in danger, when there's real danger, and some things are dangerous, but not very, or things seem safe, but they're not very dangerous. And it's just people need a better sense of NFT and crypto Ponzi danger. Like they need to realize, they need to wake up a little bit.
There's no doubt that the value is subjective on most things. Okay, so there's no doubt about that. So that argument is true, but there's some danger in falling back on that argument with everything you're doing too. So
anyways. You don't want to lean on it with all your weight.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Anyways, appreciate it, man. Thanks for joining us.
Guys, take care.
Yeah, have a good one.
Bye.